Welcome to Keep Sane, cheaper than therapy. And as usual, I'm going to be ranting or rambling at least about stuff. This would be episode 29. I'm going to talk about managerial stupidity, mainly because it's what I keep dealing with over the last few days and driving me bonkers. So I'm going to vent so I can get some of it out of my head and hopefully relax and enjoy the rest of my day. What I'm pretty much talking about is this overall fuck the employee mentality. If I'm busy, it's what matters. If there's concerns, I'm going to say something defensive and not listen to what you're saying. I'm going to totally disregard, you know, what's obviously wrong and causing morale issues. Um, all that stuff. It's just, I don't, I really don't get it. It's like managers for the most part, are really not vital to operations. Now, a great manager can change culture, can change efficiency of a company, can absolutely make an improvement. But a bad manager can tank a company, can also absolutely have zero impact. And right now, I'm more talking about the zero impact manager. Great managers are awesome. They're so few and far between. It's almost like it's too rare because very few companies promote from within by people who obviously have brains, not people who kiss ass. Um, and just like lieutenants in the army, it's like, I'm sorry, unless you've done some of the grunt work, you don't have respect for those working below you. At least based on everybody I know that was in the military and bitching about their lieutenant. This is primarily sergeants. Um, there's a problem with those who don't understand how workflow works, how communication works. They read all these books and come or articles or go to seminars and conferences and they come back with these harebrained ideas. Um, but right now my biggest one is I've been dealing with multiple companies on a particular long-term project, and there's a chain of command that you're supposed to follow. Like, I can't go directly to the contract issuer or the original contract holder. I'm supposed to go to who I work with, and they're supposed to go to, the person, the next person in. They'll address whatever they need to address between them, and then whatever needs to get taken to the actual main hiring company will get taken to them and worked out. That's how it's supposed to go. Well, problem is both I have a deaf ear at my source of contact, and the one above that doesn't communicate downwards and just makes decisions even though they have no actual authority over any of the people providing the service for the company. So they like to make statements based on nothing. They don't talk to anybody and they just go ahead and make these changes that screw over your workday. So it goes from bad to worse. It's like, well, all these things I've been trying to get fixed, they're now doing things that are going to make it way worse. And, as an employee, or I guess a contractor, depending on which company involved is referring to me, or, some of my colleagues, you know, my attitude towards all of that is, well, if you don't want to listen and you don't want to do it right, well, fuck you. You don't get service because you're not providing and dealing with this thing in a proper way. You want to send me issues that are internal, but you want to send it outward, trying to blame me. Fine, I'll put my notes on the issue, close it, and let the person that's having the problem you refuse to take a few seconds to fix, I'll let them bitch to you guys. And when you try to throw it at me, I'll be like, well, guess what? I don't have access to that. That's your problem. I keep trying to send it back and you keep throwing it at me. Sorry, fuck you. There's nothing I can do. If they're too stupid to understand where all the different parts of IT and all that work and how they work together. I mean, the biggest problem with compartmentalizing IT departments is everybody wants to quickly push it to someone else so their plate's smaller and their workload's easier. And I get that. But like as far as not having an overwhelming workload, the problem is if you don't ever truly manage and understand your workload, the numbers don't ever work for you to get additional help to properly do your job. Like I know a ton of people who are always like, well, it's got to get done, so I'm going to skip my lunch and I'm going to skip this and that. And I'm like, okay, so you're saying you're going to voluntarily work for free and never get help because your numbers always look good. Um, it's like that's a stupid, stupid way to do it. If the work requires additional people, guess what? Then make sure the numbers, if you can't keep up, you shouldn't get in trouble because you can't handle the workload because they understaffed. All of us can only do what we can in a day. And yes, I will honestly admit that there's a lot of times I have nothing to do. That doesn't mean I can fix issues that aren't in my category. I don't have access. I can't fix them. And no one wants to listen to what it is. They just want to keep sending me out to site because I'm the one who will go to site and be like, "Yep, I still can't do anything. Hi, how you doing?" Yep, it's still them being idiots. The customer knows it's not me. I mean, the people complaining to the main company, they know it's not me. They keep asking, why you keep sending him out here if it's not, he can't fix it. He's been here, he's tested it, we've tested it. There's nothing he can do. It's not in his, it's not a physical issue. It's something in another part. And with all the different pieces of software and hardware and all this other stuff, it's impossible, for me. I can only touch it, and I mean, if it works everywhere else and it's only this and it's not mechanical to one device, it's obviously not, something that needs repaired physically. It's something when do a software and all this other, especially when you get into proprietary stuff where it's been designed just for a company. Like, yeah, don't you can try to blame me, but it's impossible to make it stick. But listen, it's like I'm happy to help tell you what I see and what I run into to know if it's where those lines are, at least from my end. I mean, there's a shit ton of other things I have no clue about. And I'm happy to admit I have no idea what they're referring to or how it gets fixed because I don't handle a lot of parts of IT. There's so many parts. And for a customer, that's annoying. You know, to have everybody go, "Oh, it's not me." And we're even told to try not to say that. And it's I try not to, but all I can really say is, sorry, I don't have access. Let me see what I can do for you. And let me see if I can get someone on the phone but ultimately it's me wasting a lot of time not being able to fix their issue. And people at work are busy, not always, but, they don't want to sit there and wait for you to be ready for you to wait for someone else to run a test and see if it works. Um, because I'm not actually, I'm an additional party. I'm not even internal. These are all internal people mostly. And, so you keep bringing additional people in, there's a problem with that because people outside of the company, contractors and vendors and stuff, they don't want to give the same access to as internal people, but those are the specialists. I go in as a specialist, but, if you're not going to give me access, you better fucking understand what your job is, because I'm going to go out there and be like, yeah, that's, that equipment works great. I can't sending it back to you. It's not a physical issue. I'll even put notes on all the additional information they give me that they didn't have on the service request to begin with. And it's just kind of funny to me that like all that just gets ignored. Like, oh, let's do it this way. Oh, let's lighten the internal group's load that has infinitely more staff because they're lazy and stupid. I mean, literally, it's impossible to get their internal staff written up or fired for gross incompetence, like gross incompetence. They get pissy when we don't show up quick enough or respond quick enough. It's like, dude, it was 45 minutes. I've got hours, I've got a day I can get here in, and you're mad because I'm not here within the hour? You should be really happy. Your internal person won't even come to site, and they're supposed to. They're physically supposed to go touch it before they forward an issue. Um, and that's the other problem. Contracts, it's like people get lazy, and if they're not held accountable, that laziness gets rewarded. This is managerial. This all starts at the top. If people fear, I mean, like with kids, it's healthy fear. If people fear their job, which is a real thing, it's like I hate my job, hate it. I love a lot of things I do and a lot of the people, but and I love IT, but I hate having to be this small piece without having any say because no matter how much I try to teach, and so that way they don't have to waste time for the person waiting for repair, so that way everybody's happier and it's quicker resolved. It's like I keep trying to teach people, but they keep wanting to argue. It's like, no. It's like, well, yeah, I'm sorry. And realistically, even if it's not, you know, swap that piece of equipment. It's not my equipment to swap. I don't have access to even swap it. I can I can ask you have to come do that. I can't. So you shouldn't have sent it to me anyway. It's already based on the description. I knew it wasn't me before I got here. I get here, confirm that, try to send it back, and you're like, because you can't figure it out and you're unwilling to be open-minded and think differently about what the problem is. You just want to debate that it's not you. The next thing is, oh, change the equipment. Well, guess what? We don't sell you the equipment. We just service it, and only a small portion of the equipment. So there's no way for me to do that. This is something you have to go buy. You put it in yourself. I'm only here to maintain equipment. I'm not here to sell. I'm not here to put in. I don't have access to do any of this shit. It's really stupid to even have us helping in this particular instance because of the lack of ability to actually affect change. It's just reactionary and they're so incompetent. They don't know how to set up a structure so, you're ahead of the game. Ahead of the game or even like asking the right questions. Like how do you have an entire internal mechanism for collecting issues, whether it be like an intranet or a phone center or whatever, and not know how to ask questions. I mean, if I worked at Microsoft or Symantec or, well, I don't know about Symantec anymore, maybe back in the day, but um, Oregon-based company at least was for a while, and I know it's still in Oregon partially, but these companies have knowledge base, like intranets that are all about searching, so you ask the right question. The little flow chart. Is it, is it plugged in? Yes, go to the next. Is it turned on? Lights on, go next. And of course, I'm doing this from a basic desktop troubleshooting like many sitcoms and other stuff have done. It's sadly true, by the way. I do know someone who answered a broken CD holder thing for the cup holder thing. My cup holder's broken. What are you talking about? That joke. I actually have known someone who's dealt with that. I mean, they aren't where the anecdote comes from, but they definitely have confirmed it. Um, but I mean, think about your phone or your tablet or your laptop or your computer. How many different pieces of software and hardware you use? Now, if you don't use a lot of additional hardware, there's some simpleness there, but think about your personal, then also think about work and the variety there within. So when I say there's a lot of moving parts and people need to communicate and arguing doesn't help or debating it's not mine stuff, think about that on a corporate scale. Corporate scales, large corporate scales, especially when you're talking, people who do have their personal devices in, and then they're always arguing about wanting to use the network and it's a no because of security concerns and, or they do, but it's only their phone so they can access email or whatever. I mean, there's a ton of crap. So, and people love to say, I don't know how, um, like really quickly. Like, I don't know how to do this. Did you even look? Did you even spend 5 seconds trying to figure out how to change your sound volume on your cell phone? I mean, I've seen these calls. I've seen it's well, I've seen a ton of stuff, and yeah, it could be it's on, but there's no flowchart. There's no like, I have no expectation of people knowing everything. I absolutely don't. Um, but I have a really small avenue of discipline. Like I said, I'm a specialist on this particular job, and so I don't have to worry about a ton of the other stuff. I know it because I've done IT way more beyond the one small thing I do here. And so, I try to help additionally so they can figure out what's going on. And having done enough troubleshooting over the years, I understand the difference between device and network and software, at least commonality, the generalness of these issues. And if nothing else, just how to think through testing it. Well, here's an example. Okay, let's say you have one computer, let's say a laptop, since I think most people have laptops anymore. Say you have one laptop and one person calls in or emails in or however, sends a support ticket in for my email won't work. So some people would ask additional questions like, oh, when did this start? Will it load up? Can you see an email? Will it download an attachment? Blah, 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 blah. A bunch of these questions. Other people will additionally ask, has anybody else using that laptop today have the same issue? Making them go ask, has anybody else had email issues today? Because that's an additional piece of information. Because it's one piece of equipment, right? Has it been power cycled? Standard one. Usually you start with that one. Has it turned it off and on? Um, then you go through and you continue to ask questions, and eventually you'll figure out at least enough information. The problem is there's also people who want to go, okay, wipe it and reinstall everything. Okay, well, so that takes additional time. What if it was literally they needed to power cycle? I know people who will jump to reformatting and reinstalling the operating system and the software and everything without troubleshooting because it should fix it. Well, guess what? With online licensing nowadays, it doesn't always fix stuff. If it was an authentication issue, the user for online, whatever Word or Outlook, same Office suite, but whatever it may be, proprietary, non, well, I guess most proprietary doesn't have it, but whatever it is that has to go out, an Adobe suite or whatever has to go out and authenticate and come back, sometimes a user has an issue, and that's the problem. So, it's not always straightforward like that. And if you don't ask questions, you don't get further on. But, help desks tend to have to, they have call numbers. They have to keep the call volume down, keep the call queue down for the hold times. And then desktop, you can't have like different supports, can't have certain loads. Networking teams and software teams, depending on what it is, can't have like they're supposed to respond and either fix or whatever calls in certain time frames. So everybody's rushing to get it off their table. You know, and managers are the ones that are supposed to look and ask questions about what's preventing success of these things being fixed. And I'm using IT because IT is kind of something that goes everywhere. I mean, I could use a marketing department just the same. But, whether it be marketing or IT, these issues are things that a good manager will never put in their 2 cents before they listen to the audience or their staff or other management teams or whoever is involved in trying to fix this issue. The good ones will openly listen to everything, and then they will try to incorporate any of that information before they go ahead and talk. And the reason you do that is because what if someone has a better idea than you do? By you speaking first, you will influence, especially the kiss asses, from speaking their mind, especially if it's in opposition to what you just said. No one wants to feel confrontational. So the best way to not have it be a confrontation or a competition is you let people speak and you actually listen without actually putting in anything else. You listen, and guess what? If you're being true to yourself, as most current management training goes, no one's really wrong. Unless it's the I don't care. If they don't care, that's the only time you're really wrong. Because my problem is I actually care about helping the people in need, even though most of the other people I work with don't care. They just care about their not being not having it in their to-do list. You know, they just want it to go away. Like replace it. Like I can. Okay, go buy one, and then I'll put it on the desk next to people. And when you have time to come over and install it, because I don't have access or permission to do that, then it'll be installed. Rather stupid. So anyway, I email people back and forth, and people are always trying to deflect, and some people are more receptive than others, but ultimately, managerial stupidity, which tends to be their arrogance and their pride, um, it tends to be their downfall. I mean, I have yet, well, shoot, I not have yet. I've had a ton of managers that have zero practical knowledge. It's all catchphrases and philosophies that don't really don't really have a they don't have a history with successfully implementing. Like it's something they may have read a case study on or again, seminar, whatever. So it's an idea. They don't know how it's supposed to look in the real world or how to adapt it to the industry in which they work. But they have a neat idea or they have so much ownership pressure that they totally ignore the the time and energy it takes to fix issues and fix infrastructures. I mean, infrastructure is truly called, it's structure. If your foundation's fucked, your house is falling over. So a company is no different. I mean, if the infrastructure sucks, eventually you're going to either go under or you're going to have to like pay way too much money to fix it because you waited too long to care. Or you're going to have to sell out hoping someone else's infrastructure you can piggyback on and essentially just port all your data into there and then be up and running again. So it's just one of those things that I really I really don't get. Like if your employees care, that should be enough of a signal. Like, hey, I have a concern, or they're just angry or whatever the case may be. That if they're your staff, you should care what they have to say. Because ultimately, the end result is fuck you. Fuck this company, fuck you. I mean, most most people snapping are people who were not listened to who cared. Because if you don't care, you really don't give a fuck. I don't fear losing my income, but I still care. It actually bugs me because I feel like I could make more doing more. But nobody wants to go to bat and get things done to make it right. Everybody wants to say, well, we don't do things like this or we can't do that. Everybody wants to say the no. Like that's everybody's go-to. No. And don't get me wrong. I've been, again, in certain parts of IT or whatever, I'll have people come up and ask me questions and I'll say no. I've learned to not say no as much, even if we can't do it, just because no one likes hearing it. um, you know, and of course, I'm talking for when I say I've said no, it's like, is this possible in the world of, um, let's say, like the confines of software? Can this piece of software do this? You know, no, it cannot. So instead of saying that, I've learned to say, I'm not sure. I haven't seen it, but let me check and get back to you. And then like 5 seconds later, I'll just go and go, no, it can't. But at least they thought they were listened to. And again, it's not like it was an invalid question. It's just not a doable thing within that confines. It's like they're not saying, can we change the color of this icon to blue? Well, let's talk about it and figure out if that's a better color. That's not that. It's like, is that circle a square? No, it's not. Well, that's not something I have to research. If a kid asks you that, just say that's a circle, not a square. Um, but yeah, it's so frustrating to care and not and to constantly like have to literally beat a dead horse. Well, not literally. So I've been around that term so much that even though it drives me crazy, I've been using it, and I don't know why. But I mean, it's pretty much beating a dead horse to try to get things fixed and changed, and and they're simple things, little things to implement, minor accountabilities, minor things. There's no major chopping block stuff or no major like huge investments. It's just time, like little changes and then time. I mean, yes, you could do it under a big investment in a lot of these things, but A lot of times it's just, okay, we're going to restructure. It might cost every company, and I get some companies have no additional money, but most companies, in order to stay, I mean, if I told you it was going to cost you $50 now, and eventually, in like next year, it's going to cost you $40, and then the next year it's going to cost you $30, but in that 3 years, it's going to start making you $200 a month. And these are tiny ass numbers. Add 1,000 to at the end of them, or 1,000,000 or whatever, depending on how big you want to scale it. Those are investments you would make. You know, oh, if I spend essentially, what, $120 at the end of year three, I'm getting 100 of that back, so it really only cost me $20 over 3 years. And then year two, it's no more additional cost because all the things have been done. It's already built into my employee cost or my software cost or whatever else. But I'm now making that $100, you know. So I'm now up by year two, I'm up 80. And then every year after, I'm just up 100 extra every year. Again, these are just minor numbers, but essentially that's the concept here. But if you're talking efficiency, and that's my big thing I'm always talking about is efficiency with people. Yes, you can spend an extra 20 seconds or an extra minute with somebody. And while people have to wait that additional time, initially, you're also saving them waiting hours or days in the looping of trying to gather that same information from multiple people or teams or whatever being involved. Um, and I mean, that could almost be exponential. And I'm sure there's business diagrams for all this stuff. And, I don't have a business degree, don't have any degree, but efficiency is obvious. If I have to fill everything out in triplicate, it's a waste of time. If I can do one thing and it distributes to the three places it needs to go, I just save 66% of my time for the same task. So if that task used to take me 20 minutes and it now, well, that's a bad number. So now if it used to take me 21 minutes, it now takes me 7. Well, I can do 3 different things now, or 3 different of that form 3 times, and get 3 times the production. That's the sort of stuff I'm talking about. And triplicate is not far-fetched. I do almost everything duplicate. A lot of things I do triplicate. There's some stuff I do even more than that for one particular thing. And it's because forms and integrations aren't done at the infrastructure level properly. I know most people are probably have already turned this thing off, but I'm kind of hoping the managerial stupidity more circulates through. Not that anybody listens to any of this shit anyway. It's like I said, for my therapy. But I'm hoping managers listen. I mean, it's like if you have staff that cares, I don't care how busy you are, and whatever concern there is, whether it be morale or workflow, I mean, both of those cost money. They cost you more money in the long run than taking 20 minutes to address that person and listen to their concerns. Let's say you have 10 people that do that and they all have the same concern. You now have 10 incidents or 10 examples of the same thing of causing a problem, costing you money. Because morale costs money. I'm sorry, it just flat out does. People work slower, they're less concentrated, they're more angry, they don't care. Maybe they take home some office supplies or they steal your shit. It's like morale costs you money. If anything, turnover because they leave because it's fuck you. Turnover costs money. Um, but like training programs, knowledge bases, all these things are huge undertakings when you're starting from zero. But all of these things are minor things if you implement them and just work on them. If you have a bigger staff and everybody can contribute, you can have multiple people spending an hour a week. Well, let's say if you have 40 people, that's 40 hours a week being done on this training program, but you're only hitting your employees 1 hour of their work week. You're not dedicating a new employee as a full-time thing. I mean, you can, if that makes more sense, if they can do it. Problem is, most training things, you can't bring one person in because it's the individuals that have to contribute the information that they're being trained on for the departments or whatever. So it's one of those things where you might bring one person who helps with the backbone of it, another person who works on one department or another department, and then over 6 months you have this large training program way further along. But yeah, it takes 6 months. But you're only paying an hour of that time to each employee to get it going. You're not going, all right, we're going to spend $100,000 and get it up in 2 months. It's like you don't have to. Most likely, it's not going to be done anyway because, again, it relies on the people who are doing the work to stop what they're doing to fill out the information. Um, it's no different than if you want to put a marketing flyer together for somebody else's company. You can't speak, you can't put words in their mouth. You can put something generic together, but okay, you're going to do a coupon. What are they willing to have the offer be? You can't just say $1 off, ice cream cones. What if it's $1.50, they're losing money probably. So you can't just make up an offer. You can put something together and pitch it to them. Like, here, do you like this? Is this cool with you? But ultimately, you have to take some of their time to finish helping them out. Um, you know, and it's just kind of the thing. It's like little things all the time, more constant, more frequency. It's like cleaning your house. You don't dust for 2 months. Yeah, that if you, oh shit, I got to dust. People are coming over. It's going to be a big undertaking. If you do a little section every week and kind of do it all the time, it's never that big a job. Yeah, getting behind certain nooks and crannies might be you're lifting the couch or whatever. Yeah, you don't do that every month. You might do it once a year, but ultimately you're saving a lot of time and you're helping a lot of things, you know, get way further along and be easier, lighter projects. And you could have people over more often without having to have this huge undertaking of stuff. And as a note for all that, my example is take your shoes off at the door. You know why? You're not tracking shit all through your house. Less vacuuming is needed. Um, but yeah, infrastructure and listening. But that no response, I'm busy bullshit. Yeah, so am I. Or guess what? I would be more if you would answer my fucking question. There's a ton of stuff I've been holding off. I put a proposal in and to my boss and my boss's boss on a different thing. And right now, theoretically, I finally got something scheduled to talk about it. No idea how much if they're actually going to be reading it while we talk or not, if they've even reviewed it. But it's taken 6 weeks just to get that call. And this is something like I used as an example, this is something I'm talking about redistributing time to save 66% of time or being 3 times more productive, um, you know, across, I'm not even talking tens, I'm talking thousands, like a week, thousands of instances of this a week. So, huge, huge ramifications on productivity and efficiency, huge amounts of money saved and stress saved. Yes, it's not going to be implemented easily, but again, I'm talking like, and as we don't do it, there's other parts of this whole thing that the project gets bigger as you wait. You know, I don't know if you guys have ever heard the term. Um, Shit, I don't even know the term, but I was gonna say content is king, but that's a web development thing. No, the importance of good data, like, or heard about, people spend tons getting more analytics and all this other crap. And the simple thing of making sure you have a good flow of data to, like, especially for, like if you're selling something, you want to make sure all the product descriptions are good and all the, SKUs are accurate and size options, color options, all this stuff. Like, if you have addresses for customers, they have to get entered right. And, it's all this different stuff. Well, I mean, if you have that stuff wrong and you have a process that's wrong, creating additional errors every day or thousands a week, when you finally decide to fix it, all those thousands that have been gathering also have to get fixed. So time is of the essence, and a lot of people put off tomorrow what they need to do right now, and for today sort of thing. So yeah, it always boggles the mind, and I've been a manager before, and it, I mean, yes, it's like an adult daycare. You're dealing with a bunch of bitchy adults whining and bickering with each other, but at the same time if you want the company you work for to do more successful, and you care, I mean, you have to spend time figuring out how to get those communications done because if there's a problem, and I'm someone who will actually speak out, will say, "Hey, this is an issue." Other people won't because they don't want to upset their boss. They don't want to lose their job. A good manager will be less arrogant and less annoying and less complacent, and they'll go out and they'll check with their employees like, "Hey, is there anything we you think we could do better?" They'll essentially, or they'll have an anonymous suggestion box, something that allows, and whether it be the old school paper one or whatever, which that one's a little bit iffy because if you know people's handwriting, you'll eventually know who's suggesting stuff. But so the anonymity goes away, but it's just it really kills me. Like there's so many things about um, management and how they run their days and communication. Like you might be manager, but if I talked in all these people into not working for the next week, you'd be fucked, like severely fucked. So I think managers need to remember and owners need to remember while they may be the reason the company exists, it's your staff while you're still in business that runs it every day. If you're small enough, that may not be true, but if you're big enough, especially if you're a service provider, like, whether you fix dishwashers or, whatever, and have to have people out there, if you're a plumbing company, ultimately it's your plumbers that keep you in business. So pissing them off, if they all decide to tell you to fuck off, guess who no longer has a plumbing company? Well, you might, but you better be a plumber and you better be out in a van, at least running your ass off, trying to keep whatever you can going while you try to hire more people. But then you got to train them and deal with all that shit too, versus just spending a few extra minutes talking to them and figuring out what's pissing them off. I mean, if everybody wants a raise and you can't afford it, guess what? Give some a raise and replace others. I mean, but you kind of need to know before they all flip you the bird and walk out the door, you know? And honestly, if a lot of us had other options on bigger scales, a lot of us would do that. If we could literally walk out the door to a competitor and get paid the same even, we'd almost do it just to fuck you over. Um, just to prove a point. Like, hey, don't forget where the true power of all this lies. Even though the pyramid at the bottom with the greatest number is the lowest tier, I mean, if we ever, realistically, we're the most powerful. We're the reason you can run a company. Um, I'm not saying that there's not people who have worked hard and done a good thing. I'm just saying a lot of times people get promoted to manager and they get this arrogant, belligerent stupidity that goes with it and this power trip and it's just a pain in the ass. So I've got a ton of bitches about corporate and companies and stuff, but since this is getting long enough, I'm going to leave it at that and just say, hey, if you're a manager, learn to shut your mouth and listen because very few of you are smarter than your staff, at least about everything. I guarantee you most of you aren't smarter than I am when it comes to what I do because I'm really good at figuring out what I need to do and how to do it and fix the problem.